people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest as it pertains to hard-punching Mexican slugger Kenia Enriquez, who seems to be making a return to the sport of boxing after a roughly 2-year hiatus.
Using sophisticated and secret technologies, we were able to decipher the hidden language.
Kenia Enriquez signs multi-year deal with Latin KO Promotions with the firm purpose of catapulting her career on the screens of Boxeo Televisa. The 3-time world champion...
She's a 3-time world champion?
Not unless you count interim titles, which most people don't, but Kenia Enriquez of Tijuana, Mexico, signed a multi-year agreement with Latin KO Promotions, a company directed by Osvaldo Cuchle, and immediately plans to measure herself against the best in her division with her sights set on the undisputed crown with an impressive record of 28 wins and only 1 loss, 11 by way of knockout, known as the Mexican Queen, registering big names on her service sheet, facing in Mexico and the United States 7 monarchs of the world in her career, with triumphs over Katia Gutierrez, Jessica Niri Plata, Gabriela Benavidez Sanchez, and Ibeth La Roca Zamora that allowed her to win 3 world titles in minimum weight and fly, with a whopping 40% knockout percentage, managing to successfully combine her career in the ring, in the octagon, also in MMA, where she remains undefeated with 3 wins and no losses. Kenia was the latest female fighter to transition from boxing over to mixed martial arts as a result of boxing not adequately servicing her and her career. The system failed her, which I've often mentioned in passing, how she was the interim champion 2 separate times on 2 separate occasions at 2 separate weights, and both times the World Boxing Council failed to get her title shot.
Now she's back.
Even though she held their interim titles, what I often like to refer to as the stay busy belt, because once you get it, all the World Boxing Council seems to do is keep you busy, ordering you to fight other people instead of getting you your title shot. Last in action in February of 2024 when she fought Maria Salinas, winning a decision over 10 rounds. Up until that point, she was keeping a pretty active schedule, fighting 2 times in 2022, 2 times in 2023, then only once in 2024, before eventually transitioning to mixed martial arts, where she fought 3 times, where she's been keeping busy since then. But now, as a result of this deal that she inked with Latin KO Promotions, she's set to return to the boxing ring, where she belongs. In recent years, she's been campaigning as a flyweight. That is where currently Gabby Fundora reigns as that division's undisputed champion, and for a time, Kenia Enriquez held the interim title there. While Gabby was WBC champion, though, for whatever reason, the WBC didn't order the fight. There are few fighters anywhere at or around these weights that could give Gabby Fundora a run for her money. Kenia Enriquez is such a fighter, such a puncher. She just hasn't fought in a while, roughly 2 years. So they've got to get her active in the boxing ring, get her 1 or 2 tune-ups, and maybe they can now guide her to that Gabby Fundora fight that the World Boxing Council never ordered. Assuming that Gabby doesn't end up leaving the division to either move up or move down, even if she does, and Kenia can't get her in the ring, it's still a fortuitous opportunity, because if the reset button gets hit at flyweight, that'll be her best bet to get at a title, to finally become a full world champion. And there's a lot more going on at these weights now than there used to be in previous years. Anyone from Matchroom to Most Valuable Promotions have prized stallions. Anywhere in between light fly and superfly. There's more money being poured into these divisions, more fighters fighting on major platforms, some of which may end up crossing paths
with Kenia Enriquez.
So this is welcome news, and I'm glad to see that she's back. On the heels of this announcement, I'm expecting a fight date to be announced shortly. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, Floyd Mayweather Jr. calls off $100 million legal fight with Business Insider. The suit centered around a story about Mayweather's real estate deals, including one there's reportedly no evidence of.
Why'd you call the lawsuit off, Floyd?
The $100 million defamation fight between Floyd Mayweather and Business Insider is over. The lawsuit, filed just over a year ago, has been voluntarily dismissed with prejudice, meaning Mayweather cannot refile the same claims. Counterclaims that were made by Business Insider have also been permanently dropped, and each side will handle their own fees and costs. The judge signed an order dismissing the case on Tuesday. We're pleased that Floyd Mayweather Jr. has dropped his lawsuit and that we can definitely put these meritless allegations to rest, a Business Insider spokesperson said in a statement to Front Office Sports. A representative for Mayweather said in a statement that he has resolved his claims against Business Insider. He's focused on his business ventures and scheduled fights in the near future.
More like he came to his senses and realized he's pouring more of his own money down the drain for a frivolous case that he's not gonna win.
And what the fuck makes you think Business Insider has $100 million to kick out to you anyway? Mayweather, who's never lost a fight and boasts career earnings of more than $1.1 billion, sought at least $100 million in damages in his lawsuit, lodged in a New York federal court.
Gotta read in between the lines, people. If Floyd Mayweather felt that this case held any water and he could really get $100 million from these people, then he would have stuck to his guns and not dropped the case. The reason he dropped it is because it's a frivolous lawsuit.
The suit centered around reporting by reporter Daniel Geiger about real estate deals Mayweather publicly discussed, including an agreement to buy a 62-building Manhattan apartment portfolio. Geiger reported last March that there is no evidence there has been a sale. The lawsuit alleged that Geiger embarked on a campaign of harassment and defamation characterized by aggressive and misleading journalism that not only distorts the truth, but seems driven by a deep-seated bias against Mayweather's success.
How many times have you heard that one from the bozos in the YouTube comments?
It also claimed Geiger refused to review documentation proving the deals in question happened, and that he actively sought to undermine Mayweather's business ventures and humiliate him publicly.
But was he lying about anything he said? Because if he wasn't, you can't prove defamation.
Business Insider disputed the allegations, calling them dishonest in court filings. It also argued that Mayweather failed to show there was actual malice, which is the necessary standard to prove defamation. Mayweather, 49, had announced his retirement from professional boxing in 2017, but he unretired in February of this year, lending credence to Business Insider's reports that he's in the hole with a lot of people, he's strapped for cash.
Why the fuck else would he unretire at 49, close to 50 years old, if he didn't need the money?
He's supposed to have a few bouts planned, a rematch with Manny Pacquiao that seems to be in limbo, suspended animation, and a trip over to Greece for a fight with Mike Zimbides, and we don't really know where we are when it comes to the Mike Tyson exhibition bout, because as it pertains to those exhibition bouts that would require Floyd to travel abroad, it seems he's been grounded by the IRS, who are moving to have his passport revoked based on the $7 million that he owes them.
That makes him a flight risk. If you let this guy leave the country, he might travel someplace where he can seek refuge from the U.S. government because they won't extradite him.
Like Daniel Kinahan did for years from the Irish authorities and the U.S. government. It took a long time for John Law to finally catch up to him. It seems with Floyd, they want to nip this in the bud before it starts. They don't want to let him leave.
He dropped his lawsuit because it never held any water, trying to sue Business Insider for $100 million. What the hell makes you think they even have that kind of money?
It's not that they have it, so much as he needs it, based on what he claims Al Heyman and the people at Showtime stole from him in excess of $300 million and his mounting debts.
All these people that he owes money, as well as the overhead of his lifestyle, because when you're walking around with that many security guards, those are all people that you have to pay.
In tandem with the general bullshit that he burns through cash on, jewelry, watches, things nobody really cares about, least of all when it's a 49-year-old man flaunting them.
Grow up.
The truth is that Floyd dropped this lawsuit because he can't substantiate defamation. The elements aren't there. Business Insider talked about his finances the same way they would talk about anybody else's, any other public figures who might be going through financial hardship. The reason it's a story when it comes to Floyd is because he's said to be the richest boxer that ever lived, who generated the most money with career earnings in excess of $1 billion. Enough periodicals spent enough time talking about how much money he was making, so that now, if the opposite is happening and he's in the hole, why is that supposed to be off limits?
He was happy to let them talk about how much money he was making, so now he's unhappy because they're talking about how much money he's not making? What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
You dropped your lawsuit because you can't substantiate defamation or slander.
The elements aren't there in your case. You would need to constitute malice.
Except there's nothing malicious about what Business Insider reported, all of which is a matter of public record. They weren't lying.
Oh, because they're so biased against Floyd. How many times have you heard that one? How many times have you seen it? In the comment section of my videos detailing this exact same subject. You don't need to be jealous of Floyd or biased against him to talk about how he burns through too much money too fast, money he's not making anymore.
And if he's not careful, he's gonna end up another broken down boxer like the ones that he used to talk about when he was active. He never used to pull punches when talking about his fellow boxers' hardships, their finances. That wasn't off limits to him, but he's supposed to be?
Why? Because it's unflattering? Because he's embarrassed? So what? How does he think he made other people feel? Doing the shit that he was doing.
Saying the shit that he was saying. He should be embarrassed. You've been pretending this whole time to be some sort of an entrepreneur, some sort of mogul.
Boasting career earnings in the neighborhood of $300 million a month in commercial real estate?
When there are literally countries, entire countries that don't have that kind of cash surplus, which sort of gave it away that Floyd's no businessman. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
He just surrounds himself with people he thinks knows what they're doing.
So that they can then tell him what to do. Like Al Heyman, who seems to have scammed him out of $340 million.
It's only embarrassing because you lied about your business acumen. It's only humiliating because of who you pretended to be. And you only went after Business Insider because you knew they were telling the truth and you wanted them to stop. You don't have the power to do it.
But at least you tried.
Father Time and karma itself, Kismet, has a way of humbling us all when we need to be humbled, and that's what's happening to Floyd Mayweather now. Do I pity him?
No, he did this to himself.
I don't say it out of malice. If he can find a way to dig himself out of this hole, more power to him. But nothing that he's experiencing now is a byproduct of something I said.
Or something that Business Insider wrote. You are in the situation you're in right now because of you.
Some people might find that funny.
Some might not, but you're a public figure who was happy to flaunt his wealth in front of the public. You still had it, so that now, if you don't, what do you expect the reaction to be? Do you expect people to not talk about it?
Not write about it?
In terms of boxing, I think there are some who don't want to touch this subject because of how unflattering it is for Floyd and the light that it puts Al Heyman under, that many of us were right about him. They don't want to talk about that. Some of the boxing people don't, but Business Insider...
It's a business journal, and you claim to be a businessman.
So when they're talking about your business, it's no more than you've been talking about your business publicly for years. Except this time, it's not flattering.
I was doing an interview with Coach Breadman. You guys went against him against Caleb Plant. And he feels that Jai Obataia is better than David Morrell. What you think?
Hell no. I don't think he's better than David Morrell. Not at all, you know?
Of course not, because now that you fought him, he's supposed to be the greatest thing ever, the best thing smoking.
After the fact.
Don't get me wrong. I think John Opataia is a good fighter. He doesn't have a chin. And all his fights, he gets hurt.
Doesn't have a chin. Doesn't have a chin. Your son's hit the canvas more times than he has.
You know, I don't think he has a good jab. I don't think he has a good defense.
It's good enough that he hasn't been put down as many times as your son, so it can't be that bad.
I don't think he has a good body shot. I don't think he has a good uppercut. He's just a good fighter, a fighter that's disciplined. I see that discipline. I just don't see that talent. I mean, if I ask you, what's his best
Attribute.
punch thing that you like? Huh?
Yeah.
What is it?
If it would be, yeah, probably a straight punch, but yeah, I mean, I get what you mean. I seen his last fight. He's not really
I just don't.
dynamic. He's kind of very simple. I get what you say, but a big guy. You know, this is what people are saying. Big guy with athletic ability could give you know David Benavidez problems.
That, that's what everybody says.
Yeah.
That's what everybody says. Everybody thought that the weight of Zurdo and the power was going to be a big difference.
Who thought that? Not the odds makers. They had David as the favorite going in. And not the fans. Many of them had David as the favorite going in. Why is Jose pretending that they beat the odds and proved somebody wrong? They didn't even prove me wrong.
Like they silenced the naysayers. There were no naysayers.
You know, um, I see that, you know, Apetaya, David, I think he'll probably stop him like in 1 or 2 rounds.
So go do it then. Put your money where your mouth is and go stop him inside a round or 2.
All of a sudden, we're supposed to look at David Morrell and his 11 fights, because that's all he had going into the Benavidez fight, as being better than Jai Opataya.
And his 30 fights, 23 of them ending by way of knockout. What's supposed to be David Morrell's claim to fame again? Because Jai Opataya has more knockouts than David Morrell has fights. And what's supposed to be his signature win? Last I checked, David Morrell didn't fight anyone worth remembering before the Benavidez fight or after.
But as far as the fights that he's had after that, he looked bang average in the Kolajdzic fight, and he looked even worse with Imam Katayev, who a lot of people think beat him, where nobody thought Brendan Glenton beat Jai Opataya, who you say has a glass jaw?
Oh, because Mayweather Sr, the number 1 cruiserweight at the time, broke it.
It's the funniest thing that even with a broken jaw, he hasn't been down as many times as your son, and in spite of the broken jaw, who won the fight?
I don't think Jai Opataya's actually ever been down. So what does it say about a guy that you can break his jaw in 2 places and he still won't lose his footing, he won't quit, he won't stop, he'll still win? What does it say?
Says that's why they don't want to fight this guy.
Says that's why David Benavidez doesn't want to deal with him for another 2 years, and that's according to David, not me. So now they're putting little old David Morrell on a pedestal after the fact, when before they fought, they were saying the same things about David Morrell that I was saying. The guy's all right, but he hasn't fought anybody. It's for that reason I picked David Benavidez to beat him.
Not enough fights, not enough experience, no real signature wins over the somebodies at either 168 or 175.
For the pedestal that you are now putting him on and using him to shake Jai Opataya, he's fighting this weekend on the undercard of Wortley versus Dubois, and you guys better damn well hope that he doesn't keep looking shit.
Because he's been looking shit, and that's supposed to be one of the better wins on your resume.
Nothing surprises me about Jose Benavidez and what he says because he's a coward. He's a rat-faced weasel.
Guy can't even grow a full mustache.
Those may as well be whiskers on the sides of his lips because he's a pussy.
So is David.
I see through the whole production, the whole thing, and I know you're gonna get your comeuppance.
Keep talking shit.
You remind me of a lot of guys who I said were gonna get theirs, and they did. You will too.
All I gotta do is wait.